you come here, your soul incarnates with the intention to balance certain lifetimes. And it is often a very powerful lifetime for us that we hold and carry forward. And even I've had a lifetime where I was very high up in the Catholic Church and I lost my love of God and replaced it with a love of power and money. And that's part of what I'm here to balance as well.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. Today, I am joined with Melissa Legette, one of my good buddies, my 911 call immediately when I am going through a life crisis. Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are holding an event on September 21st between 1 and 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Tribe in Baltimore. This event is my first interactive live in-person conversation, and it's going to be with you. And I wanted to give the audience some context about what to expect. No pressure, but I just wanted to chop it up with you and just give them a little bit of a preview of what, if they come and hang out with us, what can they expect? What are we going to be talking about? I mean, whenever we have a discussion, it's never really the same subjects over and over again. It's something, usually we go down a rabbit hole or we discuss past lives or whatever. But if you were to say to someone, you come to this event on the 21st, Trey and I are going to have a conversation, what would you tell them to expect?
Well, I would love them to bring their questions about their journey and their spirituality, questions about the universe, questions about what God means to them, goddess, source, whatever. Because I know our goal in this is to be interactive with those that come and attend. So I would just say, come and bring your curiosity and let's explore together.
Immediately, I can just feel the pull of the universe guiding me to this question. What is God to you?
So God is the divine masculine expression of the infinite for me, and goddess is the divine feminine expression of the infinite for me. And I believe that we are all fractals of God consciousness, source consciousness, goddess consciousness that are here to evolve and experience themselves.
So God does have a gender. It's just split in two.
I don't know, that for me it is. And that's quite a recent development in my world. Did I share with you my experience in the Arctic?
No, but you're going to now.
So my husband, daughter, and I had an incredible experience in June where we went and we cruised the Arctic Circle with a profound group of people. And we were there on the summer solstice, so the sun was never setting. And I had this experience where we were out on one of the Zodiac boats and we were looking at some of the biggest glaciers that are existing right now. And I had this experience where my husband was holding my daughter and I was looking at, he was facing me, they were facing me, and they were in their backdrop was a glacier and a mountain and the sun beaming through the clouds in this very majestic way. And I was watching my daughter be rocked to sleep in my husband's arms. And I just had this overwhelming experience of love and gratitude and just awe. I was in awe of just the beauty that this earth holds. And I looked at my daughter and I just could feel how safe and how held she felt by my husband, by this divine masculine man who I've so beautifully given my heart to and, built a life with, a life that is better than I could have ever imagined. And then I started to feel that sense of being held and that sense of safety. And it was the only way I can describe it is I was literally feeling like I was being held by God. And it was this just divine masculine presence and this divine masculine, just sense of safety and peace. And it's a very different energetic signature that I experience because I usually work with the goddess in my work because I usually, in my sessions, I embody the divine feminine. And I honestly couldn't talk about it without crying for a month, but it was one of the most life-changing experiences of my life. And it was just in that moment I had peace of everything is going to be okay. Because one of the aspects of the trip was, you know, very environmentally conscious of how all this ice that we were seeing, it could melt in 5 years, 5 to 10 years. And seeing how we're just hurtling towards this precipice of, we're either going to change and like get our act together, or we're not. And either is going to be okay, and either is going to be serving, and just peace with everything that's happening is supposed to be what's happening. And yeah, that was my experience meeting the divine masculine expression of God.
So your husband, Brian, we all love Brian. He's a great
Yeah.
guy. So Brian's God, essentially.
Yeah.
Don't tell him that.
Well, I might.
But so it seems like to me you're a representation of the divine feminine, and then he's the representation of the divine masculine, and then coming together with that is essentially the piecing together of the God whole, and then experiencing that in the moment was your subjective experience of everything coming together, and just being okay with whatever happens down the road, like whether Earth or humanity goes down, the two paths that you described, like, destruction or um, enlightenment, right? Essentially,
And
and
I
being
don't
okay
think
with both.
destruction. I just honestly, because I very much believe that we are the co-creators of our reality. And a lot of people are rightly so very worried about the times that we're in right now. There's a lot of, a lot of divisiveness, a lot of things to worry about. And it's also, I say this a lot in session, like, how is your home? Like for me, yeah, there's a lot of crazy things going on outside, but in my home, it's peaceful. It's like a sanctuary. So that is how I don't get caught up in the chaos of it. I very much can see it, and I'm informed about it, and I'm choosing to create a reality that is based in love, based in peace, based in sovereignty. And I think that is actually how we start to shift. And I would very much caution those of you that are so worried about it that you're not sleeping at night. Like, that worry is kind of feeding into exactly, I think, what that energy wants. It wants your distraction, it wants your fear, it wants you to be obsessed with it. And for me, I see all of that. And I know that one of the best ways to counter this and create the world that I want is by love. Like, I love my husband, I love my daughter, I love my stepdaughter, I love my clients, I love you, I love my friends. I'm very focused on building community right now. And again, I bring the energy of sovereignty and peace. And I think that's how we can counter that. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, right now, we live in this reality where, to your point about the icebergs or the Arctic Circle melting within 4 to 5 years, like that happens, like there's going to be a radical shift in the Earth's environment and atmosphere, biosphere, which would ultimately create some type of destruction somewhere of flooding or whatever imbalance on Earth. But how do you, right, like step out of that? I totally believe that you create your own timeline, like you create the
mhm,
reality in which you live, right? Not only through
mhm.
the perspectives and experiences, but also because of your divine power that's inside of you, being able to choose which timeline in which you reside. So what are your protocols for that, right? Like, so you're here now with me having this conversation. We're experiencing this together, but you're living in a reality or a timeline where 4 to 5 years, the polar ice caps could melt. Like, so how do you shift that? How do you shift that timeline for yourself? What are some of the protocols that you implement to kind of shift out of that?
Well, I always focus on what is within I kind of look at it as like a sphere of control. And I am very, very environmentally conscious, and I have been for, I'd say all of my adult life. I remember even like I was lecturing my first boyfriend about not recycling at one point. I would no longer lecture a man on how to be a man. I've evolved that much, but I remember it's always very much mattered to me. So I do what I can, and I engage in my life with that consciousness of like, I want to not be overly focused on needing more, but like I have enough, and I can, like, we're growing our own food this year, and I want to increase that. I want chickens one day. I really, really try not to use plastics, single use plastics, especially. So, like, that's kind of like what's in my home that I can control. And then also, like I was saying, there are very intelligent people that are waking up to these problems that are far more brilliant than I am in how to solve them, and empowering those people to make these conscious choices that are connected with, I would say, the higher consciousness. So in my work, I work with a lot of CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs. Um, Aligning them with their soul and their soul's purpose, I think is, that's one way I can have an impact on this world. And very much coming back to my place of trust and faith. I trust that my soul came here, incarnated at this time for a reason. And I know I work with a lot of mothers who are very worried about, they have young children and they're like, how could I have brought children into this time of climate change? And I always say to them, like I remind myself, trust your children, trust that these souls know what they're doing and they came at this time for a reason. So I always kind of bring it back from, I'm not the most serving. I'm not the most serving in my home, in my work, in my community when I'm overwhelmed with fear of things I can't have an impact on. So I pull it back and I create that impact in those ways that I'm able to.
I love that answer. Yeah, for sure. Do what you can when you can, right? And but also
Yeah.
you have to save yourself first. Like it's like the airplane metaphor where you're going down in this fiery crash, but maybe not. Let's not say fiery, but let's say you're going down in a crash and you need to put the air mask on yourself first before you can save anybody else. So it's like you have to do the internal work first, right?
Mhm.
To really garner that intrinsic power that you hold and then go out into the world and be the best version of yourself. Because
Yeah.
I have had recently this experience to where um, just through meditation, that if consciousness is the fundamental substance of this reality, and not even substance, but like it's fundamental to this reality, then everything that I interact with throughout my day is consciousness. And so my relationship to that has an effect on that. And if I want to change my reality, I have to approach everything with what you're talking about as love. The issue
Mhm.
here is with my background and my perspective of how I've grown up, I have a distortion of what love is. I don't know exactly what love is. And it's only through my experiences, through meditation and through practices and protocols that I implement for myself to get to know myself, where I find out like what it is like love truly. Like it's to me,
Mhm.
it used to be a word. It used to be a four-letter word that I used to get things and to receive things.
And to
And
possess
so,
in
and yes,
cases.
and to possess that, right? Now I am finding out that love is something totally different than what I thought.
Mhm.
And to to garner or not garner, but like to create more of that in my life, I have to put in the work internally to find my own source of it, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that's honestly, that's the foundation of my work is I work with my clients to highlight their subconscious beliefs and programming. And a lot of these programs and wounds are actually rooted in unconditional love. So, like, I'm not worthy, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable. Um, and I think that's part of the game that we play when we incarnate. Like, we come here and we take on these narratives, and, we spend our lives getting back to the truth. And it's interesting because I call our generation, like we're the cycle breakers. We are the ones that are kind of coming into awareness of all of the things that need to be changed. And we're raising our children very differently. And I always joke that like my daughter's not going to have to devote her 30s to like, peeling back her programming because I'm trying very hard to keep her who she is. And of course, I'm human. I'm an imperfect human raising a human. I'm not going to get it right and I'm not supposed to get it right. She's going to have her own journey with this, but I'm raising her to be in tune with her body, with her spirituality, with that trust and that faith that I really had to find my way back to.
Sure. But you found your way back, right? People listening to this, it may seem odd to them that, it's an internal journey. We're so fixed on the external. We're so fixed on like the distractions and the social media and the movies and
Mhm.
things that keep us from going within. What does that journey look like when they say the power, everything that you need is within you?
Mhm.
Like, what does that mean?
I very much believe in, it's the Hermetic Principles of as above, so below, as within, so without. your external reality is a mirror and a reflection of what is going on within you. So your subconscious runs the show, and everything that's going on in your life is exactly what your subconscious wants for you, even if you're so frustrated with it. And it's all really about how it's your system trying to create safety for you, I think, and like feelings of worthiness and love, like being lovable, based on these programs that you picked up in childhood. And sometimes also we carry them over from past lives. Like for me, I know I talked on our first podcast about the past life block I had around being seen in this work, because I had been persecuted for being, we'll just call it a witch, for lack of a better word. I think of it more as like a medicine woman. But having a fear of being seen, because if I'm seen in this way, I am not safe. And very much becoming aware of how internal Melissa was running the show as opposed to conscious Melissa, who had these bigger goals and bigger dreams for herself.
Mm.
And also, I know, I'm sure your listeners and you are familiar with how we are in a time that's drastically changing. The consciousness is rising. The divine feminine consciousness is rising. And I also believe that that's sparking the divine masculine consciousness to rise so that he can hold the divine feminine consciousness. And this doesn't just happen. Like, we're not just sitting around and it's like, oh, do you feel that consciousness rising? How lovely. It's happening through us doing the work. And it's happening through men like you embodying the divine masculine. And even, we all hold the masculine and the feminine within us. So even when you were saying like, oh, do you think God is gendered? It's not the gender, it's that life force expression, that polarity of the masculine and the feminine. And it's through women like me that are embodying the divine feminine in ways that have been suppressed for millennia. And the consciousness, the collective consciousness, rises through us doing the individual work. It's always mirrored.
Mm. I love that. So I've always questioned this, right? Like, so you talk about past lives. We've had discussions about this. And if we are consciousness and we come into this body and we are subconsciously not arising, but we're subconsciously projecting past life trauma in this reality or creating a block for ourselves. How does that, I mean, how do we transfer? Like, how does that transfer? Like, I'm 1% conscious right here. Like, if we're 99% or 95%, the unconscious is running the show, and I'm only conscious of 1% of this reality, or my thoughts are like, what is that? How does that translate in as far as past lives? Like, what is consciousness? Is consciousness really the unconscious, like the collective unconscious? And then how does that translate into um, why am I experiencing blocks from 10 lives ago? Like, how does that transfer into this life?
I honestly think that it is, you come here, your soul incarnates with the intention to balance certain lifetimes. And it is often like a very powerful lifetime for us that we hold and carry forward. Like, I have my entire life, I've been just terrified of heights. And actually, in my work in my own past lives, I was an immigrant who fell and died working on like building a huge building. And even with that awareness of like, oh, it's from that lifetime, like I still just get terrified of heights. So we all, like, it can kind of manifest as fears that you've had, phobias that you've had that you don't really have a way to pinpoint. And I very much believe we come here with the purpose of balancing certain lifetimes. And mine has been those lifetimes in which I have been deeply spiritual and deeply in relationship with God, Goddess, myself. And even I've had a lifetime where I was very high up in the Catholic Church and I lost my love of God and replaced it with a love of power and money. And like, that's part of what I'm here to balance as well. And I would say that your subconscious runs the show, but for you and like people like that are striving for awareness, I wouldn't say it's as high as 99%. I would say the more aware you are of your programming, and I like to call it my bullshit, like, I would say the more consciously aware you are of that, the less that your subconscious is just going, like, running the show without it being in your awareness.
Do you think it could ever balance to like 50-50, like, like unconscious, conscious? I mean, I'm
I
just asked, I don't know.
I don't know. Because again, we have to kind of survive this life that we're living. And I think if we were just so aware all the time of like what our subconscious is filtering and processing, that would be kind of, we couldn't like be present with our children.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think Jung, was it Jung who said that the individuation process was making the unconscious conscious? Or maybe that was Freud. I don't know. I'm
that
mixing
was
the
young.
two. Jung,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
if we become conscious of our unconscious, like define aware, does that mean that I'm aware of everything that I've ever been in this my entirety of being conscious or of consciousness or being consciousness?
You are, your higher self is, and you will be when you pass and go back into, the soul realm, the spirit realm. And some people are like Matthias de Stefano. I know he knows every single one of his lives. I don't think that's for me to know all of them. I know quite a few of mine, but I believe that we see the lifetimes that are impacting us and influencing us, and we see what we're ready for. Like there is a lifetime of mine that I'm still not able to access yet because I'm not quite ready. So, and again, I mean, if it's your goal, I'll support you, but it's not really my goal to know everything that I've ever been because I know I have access to that, like my higher self does.
Mm. Why do you think we still keep coming back? You know, like, so you said earlier, God divided itself so it can know itself. And so here now, I'm a big fan of the podcast, Know Thyself.
Mm-hmm.
And to know oneself, like, what does that mean? So I'm here to experience this reality, but I feel like the objective is to also know exactly who I am, the self, the authentic self, not what everyone projects onto me or what I project out to reality as far as like the persona, but like the real core self. Define know. Like if someone was to truly know who they are, like what would that look like?
For me, it's knowing what so I call them my aligned values. They're like my core values. And it's knowing, it's being very much in touch with what I want and what I desire without the programming of the shoulds. Like my life was dictated by what I should be doing in my 20s. I would say not until the end of my 20s that I started to break out from that. And for me, it's again being very aligned with what I want, what I desire, and like not having anyone else externally influence that. And that alignment always goes back to my core values.
Your wants, your desires, where do you think they come from, this persona, this Melissa, or do you think they come from the higher self or soul?
Both. And I'm okay with both. I work a lot with women who are just very disconnected from their desire. And desire's a very, very powerful thing for the feminine to play in and to create from. So I'm here for both. I'm here for what my soul desires, and I'm also just here for what I'm a Taurus. So I love me some luxury. I'm here
I'm
for
right
it
there with you. Yeah. You and I are very similar.
now.
But there's also that guilt associated with that too, right? Like for me anyway, just my upbringing of like having nice things, like what that means or what that translates into this reality of like who that could possibly represent. You know, we've had conversations where I've been triggered by like, you know, spiritual teachers or people of influence having nice things and then presenting that self to the world. And then me having this idea of like, oh, that doesn't mean that they're spiritual at all. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like
Yeah.
that religious kind of like,
And we're here to actually break that because that's actually a program designed to keep us like out of wealth, to make wealth bad. And money, the consciousness of money, very much desires to be healed right now. And I think that healing comes through conscious entrepreneurs and conscious, just any conscious person that we all have to engage with money, starting to engage with it in a different way. And there is a shift happening where, the world that we say that we want, and we opened this show up talking about like climate change, like for big shifts to happen, excuse me, we need to have a shift in who has the wealth and the power. And that healing happens through it being okay. Like if you want Prada shoes, like go for it. And honestly, I've done a lot of healing work on myself around this. And anytime I had a judgment of somebody that had money, I looked at it through the lens of they obviously have permission to be something that I have rejected being. And like, what is that? And always exploring it through that lens of my judgment is actually telling me something about myself, telling me something about these limiting beliefs, these limiting programs, and exploring it through curiosity as opposed to letting that judgment, like when the judgment leads to shame, you stop. You tend to like shame yourself and then you just like pull back out of it. But when that judgment leads to curiosity, you deepen and the exploration of your inner work expands. And that's how I've done the biggest shifts around money in my life is when I've had judgments of those with money, I'm curious about it. Like, why? What do they have that I don't think I'm capable of having because it'll make me bad, it'll make me wrong in some way. I had a lot of stories around money being bad, and I also had a lot of punishment programming. So, like, if I have the bad thing, not only will I not be good, but something bad will happen. And really kind of peeling that back and create, because that at its core was like, if I have the bad thing, I will not be safe with the bad thing. So, creating this feeling of safety in my body when it comes to wealth has been pivotal for me.
Sure. Yeah. How do people know that they're making change in their lives? Like what are some markers that they can see? Because I know it can be difficult. Like if you're really into this body and you really think this is who you are, like to really become more of a conscious creator and step back into that power that you keep speaking to. Like, how do you see the markers start changing? How do you see the tides change?
For me, my marker is I'm just much more at peace. I'm much more at peace with myself and I'm much more at peace with other people. Like, I don't have those creeping judgments of you should be spiritually different. Like, I don't ever believe that I know how you should be, better than you do. And it is, and when I do have those moments, because of course I am human, so sometimes those judgments will sneak up. I always engage with them, like I said, in that curious way. And I don't allow them to create shame and guilt in me anymore. It's always an exploration for further growth. And I was even actually thinking this morning about how vastly different I am from definitely when like my husband and I met. I had scarcity mindset just running the show back then. And I'm just much more in a place of trust and peace and very much at peace with everything that we have now, even though I am working to build more.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scarcity mindset. Yeah, I definitely have a little bit of that, a touch of that. But is
Mhm.
that scarcity mindset, like obviously the programs and scripts that we've grown up with has
Mhm.
created this, I guess, obstacle for us, right? And
Mhm.
we project that into our reality, and then our reality basically gives us that back.
Mhm.
So, in going within and becoming more aware of your unconscious influences and your biases, you can, I guess, untangle that or free that energy up to where
Mhm.
it doesn't as bother you as much or doesn't give
And
you as many obstacles.
it doesn't bother you as much and you engage with it differently. So again, I'm human and I don't believe that we reach this like place of like, oh, I'm healed, I'm done. Like, look at me, I'm perfect now. I believe that these things will continue to come up, especially when we're in a place of like my old programs come online when I am tired or like if I've had a rough night of sleep with my daughter and I engage with them differently now. Like I'm like, oh, there's my old bullshit. I'll just let it be and I'm not going to let it run the show. And I am in dialogue with myself of like I'm not going to let my fear lead. I'm going to let my heart and my soul lead. So it's just this awareness with it and I'm interacting with it in a very different way. Like I said, I take a more curious approach to it. I explore it. I allow it to reveal what it needs to, what it's there to reveal to me, and I don't let it dictate the show like it used to. Like I used to have, it used to be so much in my subconscious. It was dictating every single choice I made, and I had no idea why it was there. And I do this work with my clients as well. So my clients have these conscious goals for their businesses, for their lives, and I'm working with them to see where their subconscious is out of alignment with that. And the more you can get your subconscious into alignment with your conscious goals, the more they're able to come in to your life and you're able to reach them.
How malleable is the subconscious?
I mean, for my work, I would hope very. In my experience, very, very malleable. Like
So
the
when
brain is able to change. I 1,000% believe that you are able to change. And I used to have this very outdated idea of, I remember at some point in my psychology training, I was told that like the personality is pretty much set by 30. Like, and I remember saying, like, being told, like, oh, you should probably not get married until you're 30 because you'll know exactly who you are. And I think that planted a seed in me because I actually got married at 30. And I'm a vastly different person since then. Like, I have been so many different versions of myself with my husband. Like, so yeah, we are incredibly capable of changing. Once you bring awareness to something, you are absolutely able to shift it. And with my clients, I do this work of shifting our beliefs and our programming through, I do a lot of it in meditation, because when your mind is in that theta brainwave state, you can do a lot more, creating new neural pathways. And this is what plant medicine is for people. It allows them to create new pathways in their brains as well. So
Mhm.
I believe we are never meant to be like static and not moving.
Sure, static
I don't know if
is
that's the right word.
death. To me, it is, complacency equals stagnation, which to me just it doesn't equal growth.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're speaking like this, I feel like an intuitive like picture form in my head where the subconscious or consciousness, right? I keep thinking back to, oh well, I am Trey, I am conscious, like, and then thinking that subconscious is still a part of me in this body, but like ultimately, I feel like the consciousness that I am is non-local. So the subconscious part of that is like, I don't know. If I'm going to simplify this, I'm going to say, all right, all of my consciousness of what I am is like projecting itself into this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to change it, it seems like what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have to do a lot of rewiring of the brain. And because of the belief systems that we hold in this physical reality is what is creating this, right? So there is a lot of potential in the subconscious for anything that your imagination can desire. However, the brain is what limits you because it is the belief systems that you create in which you experience, if that makes sense.
It's not only the brain, it's our bodies as well. Especially for embodying feminine consciousness, that's often an embodied experience. And a lot of us don't have like safety in our body. So we don't really engage with experiences in an embodied way. So I also coach a lot of people through somatically engaging with emotions and experiences, like actually feeling where they are in your body and how your body is constantly communicating to you, like a gut reaction to something.
Mhm.
That's it right there. And
Well, the heart too, it has like neuron like
mhm.
maybe they're neurons. I'm not too up on that literature, but like it does have a brain of its own when it's activated. So I wonder if like the heart has belief systems too. And I keep associating belief systems with the brain. However, I know that's just me, trying to conceptualize it here in this reality. But
Yeah, and
like,
the brain plays a big role. It's a big deal.
sure,
And
yeah,
also,
it is a big deal.
I think that it's both of us, we have a lot of training and education in scientism. So it's us trying to like take something and make it applicable when these concepts are very esoteric. And honestly, if it helps, because it helps me talk about this way in a way that's concrete.
Mhm.
And when something's concrete, I feel like my clients can take that and apply it to their lives more easily. And I know that, again, we are rewiring the brain, we're relaying neural pathways. And also, I think you're absolutely right. I think it has to do with the heart as well, the gut as well, especially for working with the masculine. I find a lot of like the masculine desires, its gut, heart, and like mind to be aligned with those aligned actions, and like its desires, its desire to overcome something. Um, so the body plays a big role as well. And I don't know, I know the energy, like the energetics of how the heart leads, but I don't know the actual like physical biology aspect of what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm just learning more. I'm learning more so now how to tap into that energy center and
Mm-hmm.
feel it and like identify. when I'm in it, because then
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it like pulsate, or not pulsate, but radiate. And like, I don't know, speaking to belief systems, I wonder if like our souls have belief systems. You know what I mean? Like you talk about these past lives and these traumas and things of that nature. Like, I don't know. Like I always wonder if, because if our consciousness is projected into this body, like, and right now, like if you think about at the quantum level, or like what Donald Hoffman says or Thomas Campbell says about reality of it being like we're wearing a headset. And essentially right now, because I'm not observing my brain, there isn't really one there, because reality doesn't need to render that. It's only when I cut this skull open will a brain render itself and then have the functionality and parts of a brain. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder where our belief systems really reside. What are your thoughts? Do you think like the higher self has belief systems?
I do. Because I believe that the souls, they kind of, like I said, it's a fractal of God, goddess, source. I think they break off to then evolve through all the experiences and then return to source. And, we are our higher selves. We have a lot more human belief systems. I don't believe the higher self has belief systems rooted in like fear and division, but I very much believe that they are their own entity with their own, like,
I don't know. It might have belief systems on division, right? Because it wants to get as many experiences as it can. So it's like,
I
I'm going
mean,
to divide everything.
they might. um, but again, like I think that our souls are unique, So I would think, of course, they have their own perspective.
Have you ever
I
seen
mean,
your
they're
soul?
probably not as weighed down as we are with, again,
Yeah.
fear and human stuff. What was your
Have you
question?
have you ever? Yeah. Sorry. Have you ever experienced your soul or seen your soul?
I have. I see. So I work with my higher self in my sessions, and I've also worked with past life versions of me in sessions. So I see how, I call her she because I'm, feminine in this form, but how she presents herself can change based on what I'm going through and what I need. And I also work with a divine masculine guide who is much more evolved. So he tends to just kind of like hold the space for me to do the work. But my own personal soul, I've seen her take form, and I've also just seen her as like very bright light.
What about other civilizations? Like I've heard channelings of like the different councils of light and different councils of beings. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, can we connect with them to receive messages, or be guided in this life?
Yeah, I believe you can. I'd
How do we
also,
connect with them? Is it through meditation and things of that, or you know what I mean? Like,
that's how I connect. I connect through meditation. I also don't invite a lot of external things to connect with me. I'm very cognizant of keeping my energy clear. And I also would caution anyone trying to connect to seek counsel from somebody that does this and that can really walk you through how to make sure what you're connecting with has the best intentions for you.
well, how do you know that, right? You only know that when you experience it, right? So when you are freshly on the path and you're diving into meditation, like some people are like experiencing, crazy meditations or hearing voices, and then how do
Mhm.
you know what you're connecting to?
So for me, it's my body communicates to me, and I start to feel my heart will kind of close off if there's something that I'm not, like. There is some channeler that is on my. She comes up on my Instagram feed, and for some reason, every time I see her, I just get like nope, don't want to hear what she has to say. So it's again, and I listen to that. I listen to my body guiding me through that. If you're fresh into this, I would invite you to just sit with yourself and learn about yourself, connect with your heart. And I know it can be fun. It's like the shiny thing to try to connect with ETs or whatever. And I'm not saying don't do that, but I would first start to connect with your body and how your body communicates to you, and your higher self and how your higher self is communicating with you. And then that will also help you navigate any other connections that you're seeking. But I would say first create that foundation with you and know how, because I very much believe that my higher self is my higher self is probably the one that's signaling me like, this is not for you. This is not, these are not messages that you need to hear. And that's what I'm listening to, because I, again, know how my body communicates to me to signal that yes or that no.
So it's your higher self utilizing your body to give you a sign or indication that this message is or is not for you. And we need to be more cognizant of the subtle nudges from our higher self, like pointing us in the direction that we should go.
I wouldn't even say utilizing. I would say it's just I'm embodied in my spirituality, and I've done a lot to get here to create this experience where I am in my body, and it is, and I think that's part of the suppression of the feminine has been disconnecting us from our bodies. I very much see, like I see this, the spirit realm, and then the masculine I kind of see as like the mental. The masculine's like all of those programs that we talked about, and then the feminine, in my experience, is the body. So actually coming down and bringing these things into an embodied experience to allow, we want to connect with our heart. Allow your heart to guide you. So every day I have my hands on my heart and I connect in prayer and meditation. And if I'm seeking more guidance on like the divine feminine, I have hand on heart, hand on womb, and I'm connecting that way. If I need to be in a flow state, I do a yoga flow. If I need to find balance, I will do some poses that require balance for me. I also work through a lot of, like I release a lot of stuff through moving my body, like through shaking or dancing. I release a lot of programs that I'm working through releasing by taking them to the sauna. Like once they're in my awareness, I literally take it to the sauna and I envision like sweating it out. And I think that to me is just, we're here to be in bodies. Like we literally came here to be humans in our bodies. And there's so much that's keeping us disconnected and distracted from that.
I love that. So have you had remembrances of like past incarnations or future incarnations where you were non-human, like, you know what I mean, like of a different civilization?
No, I'm very connected to the earth. My soul is. Like I've had clients that I feel like are connected to like the Pleiadians. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And there's a signature of like starseed energy that I can feel on certain clients of mine. But for me, I feel like I'm just here is where I like to be.
What is, like, you're just so fascinating to me because I love the subjective experience. Like, what does your intrinsic landscape look like? Like when you go into these meditations and you're experiencing these remembrances, like what does it look like? Is it a 3D movie? Like, are you there plugged in? Like you're
Yeah,
experiencing this reality? Like, what does that look like?
I'm very visual. So it's like a movie kind of, not a movie because I'm interacting with it, but in my third eye realm, I actually work in a temple. And I've had very powerful lifetimes in Egypt. So a lot of the work I do is in like kind of, it has like an Egyptian feel to it. And I also work with Isis and Hathor. And I've worked with Isis in her temple. And I remember seeing someone that I follow at one point, they actually went to one of Isis's temples in Egypt and they were posting pictures. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's what I saw up there. So I'm going and I'm actually, I go to this place where it creates just this ability to connect deeply. And it's like a safe place for me. And then when I'm doing inner child work to shift a lot of my programming, I'm usually going to my childhood home in that realm. And I also work with a lot of like things to help, especially in inner child work, help kind of create those memories, bring those memories back online. Like in my inner teen work, I listen to the music that I did as a teenager, and that's an amazing way to like get you right back in those feelings
Yeah, it is.
and
Yes,
create
it
the
is.
shift. Yes. Scent, smell is also very powerful. So sometimes when I'm working in, like, I had an experience recently in a past life where I was smelling a certain smell and I wasn't familiar with it. And um, it had something to do with amber, but like I can smell things and I can feel things in my body as well. Like when I work with clients and their throat chakras closed, like I start to feel that here. I feel it in my heart when their heart is closed. I feel like it in my stomach when we're working with the solar plexus or the sacral.
Yeah.
And all of
So
those things I think developed. My first strongest clair was visuals. And then as I continued to trust and allow this to unfold and these gifts to come online, a lot of the other experiences started happening as well.
Sure. That old saying, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I feel like you become those people. Like I feel like when I'm having a conversation with you, like you and I merge or intertwine or entangle, and then like we start, I don't know, becoming each other. If that makes sense. Like I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I believe that we are all, oneness. So, you are me, I am you. And I believe that when our energies start to interact with each other, that starts to create something in itself. Like your podcast has a specific energy. And I think that when you and I are speaking on this, we are engaging and getting mixed up in that. Um, you hold the energy of other people that are, very close to you, especially women. Women hold a lot of the energy of the people that they date, their lovers. They actually hold that energy in their bodies. And I've had to work with clients on like actually removing that and releasing that. Um, our energy doesn't only exist in our body, it radiates out off of it. And I think that that's what, like, I'm starting to get the visuals of what you're talking about, like how it starts to swirl together and create its own thing.
Sure. Yeah, because I feel, maybe it's just me, but being a little more sensitive to energies, like you start picking up tendencies of other people. Like when you hang out with them for a very long amount of time, whether it's your friends or relationship, like to your point, significant others, like you start picking up and maybe behaving the way that they're behaving or carry yourself the way that they carry themselves. And it's almost like you have to take a step back almost and like really step back into who you are and to figure that out. Because I mean, let's face it, we live in this world where we want to be accepted by others. Like that's just the program. Like, we need, we've survived over the course of our evolution because we were a part of a tribe almost. And so it's ingrained in our genetics to survive by being a part of the group. I feel like more so now, like, yes, it is about being a part of a group, but it's heavily, heavily important for us to go back within and find that true identity of who we are. And that's going back to the idea of knowing thyself. But it can be scary because, like, what does it truly mean to like know? Like, I think about that. Like, I really, just kind of sit with that idea of like, what does it mean? Like, if I'm here freshly new in this universe or this reality on planet Earth, and I don't have any preconceptions of what this place is, like, how do I show up? Like, how do I be in this Earth? Because
Mhm.
I don't have any prior knowledge to this place. I don't know exactly what the rules are here or what to expect. And so automatically, like, to learn of this place, like I need to go out and observe and experience.
Well,
And
that's what the programming is that we all experience in childhood. It's learning how to be a human, and we're usually learning it through the lens of our caretakers. And that includes, these ancestral or generational wounds that they're passing down. Um, to know yourself, you have to spend time with yourself and you have to listen to yourself. You have to get very familiar with your inner dialogue and get very familiar with actually, like I said, what do you want? Not what you've been told you want, but what is it you actually want? Like what actually lights you up? What brings you fulfillment? Joy is fleeting. I'm still here for it. Like get yourself some joy, but like what actually makes you feel fulfilled at the end of the day? For me, my values are. It used to be presence with my family, but I changed that to peace because what I think peace is actually presence with every single experience and emotion that comes up, and just being able to sit with it and hold it. um, that's a huge motivator for me, is to have this peace in my home and peace in my life. So I actually schedule my world around that. Like I don't take on too many clients a week that's going to push me over into being stressed, and that's going to impact how I show up for my husband and for my daughter. um, I community is a huge driver for me now. I want to connect with people that are very much aligned with my values, that think like, these conversations, I love them, I light them up, I want more of them. So having these values really drive what I'm calling in, and what I'm aligning with is very important to me. And listening, like I actually make time every single day to sit with myself in meditation. I've incorporated prayer more into my routine as well, where I pray to sometimes my higher self, sometimes I take it up to goddess, God, source. But just being I connect very deeply with myself every single day. And when you're talking about you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with, I believe that. And I also clear my energy every day. So if I'm like around people and I'm like, I don't think I really want to be like you, I'm going to clear my energy.
Oh, 100%. Like I have to do that if I remember to do that. I try to do that because, carrying that around, it just feeds off you. And then like, I don't know, it's just, to your point, I think it's a balancing act almost. It's like everything's a balancing act. Like it just, if you fall too far one side, then it's just like, it just doesn't suit you or doesn't benefit you. And then I don't know, like you can be too much in a community and then you lose your identity and then you can be totally inside of yourself and not have a connection to anything. It's like walking that middle path, right? Like that, walking that middle way.
And that's what we're here for. We're here to experience. Like we evolve through experience. And I think, I don't think there are mistakes. I think we're here for all of it. And even if you are in the wrong path for a few years, that's part of the experience as well. You'll get back on. You're okay.
Did you ever like see or have visions of like, what is it? Is it Dr. Weiss wrote that book? Is he the one, the author that wrote Life in Between Lives or something like that, where it was like the middle?
That Brian Weiss wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. I think you're talking about, is
Was
it
it
Michael Newton?
Newton? I think,
Yeah.
yeah, who wrote about the space in between, like where we pre-plan our lives here. Like, have you experienced that realm?
Yeah, I do. I actually, in sessions with clients, when I'm getting information on like soul contracts with people in their life, I'm accessing that realm.
What does that look like? Are we just standing around like, hey man, I'm going to try this. Hey, and someone standing over there and being like, hey, you might want to sprinkle this in here, like a couple of challenges here that's really going to tune you up in this category. Like,
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. And also, you have to remember every single psychic and every single intuitive, we are the filter for this information. So, my experience of receiving it is filtered through my consciousness. So, what I see of it, I'm not going to go out here and say, like, this is the truth. This is how it is. This is how it is through my lens. And I'm very much just focused on, I kind of see the contract and I'm not really up there like looking around, but I can go up there and look around for you if you want. But I kind of just go into that. I'm looking at what's going on, what are the agreements between the souls. And I'm doing this when I meditate for my clients. I meditate while writing. So I'm kind of seeing it through, like I'm seeing the contract and I'm writing down what needs to be known. So I'm kind of just seeing like the boring parts, like the pen and paper kind of thing, because that's what I'm in
what's
there to bring through.
yeah. What's the most like the commonality between, like, is it just learn how to love? Like, what is the commonality like with people that want to learn when they come here?
Well, sometimes people, sometimes people actually come together to break apart, and that is in their highest good because they've had lifetimes together where they've kind of kept in that same pattern that's not serving, like codependent or possessive, like love is possession. And part of the contract in this lifetime is to choose themselves. So like that can be a thing where if someone's going through a breakup and they're like, you know what's going on here, I can kind of see that your soul actually wants you to choose yourself. And that doesn't mean that down the line they can't get back together or anything. I never future cast in that way of like, choose yourself, never go back. Very much to the lens of like, for right now, you're being asked to choose yourself and find yourself again, because a lot of people get lost in relationships and lost in their love. So that's the soul contract I see. I see soul contracts between parents and their children a lot, around what their child, like reasons why kind of their child chose them. And a lot of so my clients are obviously like into this thing. So they're here for the past lives and stuff. So I'm seeing a lot of like very powerful souls choosing parents that are aware in this way so they can raise them to be in touch with these gifts that they have. Not like choosing households where they'll have to like squash them and bury them away and then find them again in their 30s.
Sure. I always wondered that too. Like, why do we come here, right? Is it to get a job, a career, work,
No,
retire, live the
that's not it.
golden age,
Mhm.
golden, whatever it's called, golden years, and then like, or is it to like, I don't know, awaken to who you are? I don't know. Is there a right answer? I think it's
So
all
some
of it.
people, I'm taking back what I just said, because some people actually are here to do just that, and they're here to live that lifetime that's the societal programming. Go to school, be a good student, go to college, be a good student, get a job, be a good worker, retire. Some people are here to actually have that experience. And I'm not here to judge anyone's experience or tell someone that they're doing something wrong in any way. Um, that evolves your soul, living a life
How
like
does that like? How does that evolve yourself? Like I just
because
feel like
even if you, so let's say like, if you do that and you reach your retirement and you reach age 70 and you're not fulfilled, and on your deathbed you're having regrets of like, I shouldn't have worked as hard, I should have spent more time with loved ones. That's an experience, that's a
sure,
powerful experience, that's something that will evolve your soul. We are only here where we are because we've had lifetimes that have not been fulfilling, have not been easy. um, it's all part of it. And again, there's no right or wrong, it's just a different experience. And a lot of us here right now that are awakening, I've actually heard that in order for us to awaken and like break away from 3D consciousness, we actually need souls here that are going to hold that consciousness and anchor it. So they could be incarnating to do just that, so that there can be a break away from it. You know, that's a
sure.
perception. That's interesting.
Yeah, I just keep going back to that quote of like Yeshua and the book, the Gospel of Thomas, like where he says like if you, and I'm paraphrasing here obviously, but like if you don't bring forth what's inside of you, that which is inside of you will kill you essentially. And so when I think about that path, that life path of like just being, I wouldn't even say stagnant, but just being comfortable. Like to
Mm-hmm.
me, that's death. That's a living death. You're not even living at that point. And I'm not taking away from anybody that's listening to this and that may be their experience. But to me, when I hear that, like there's just like, and there's something that pushes me towards like the warrior archetype or the monk archetype.
Mm-hmm.
That's like explore more of who you are, like explore more of that, like that feeling, that pull, like don't forget who you are, like remember. And it's almost like to set on a path, like to step onto a path. It's like you almost already have to know to remember what that feels like when you accomplish it almost, or else why would you ever start? Why would you even feel the pull if you don't already know what you're capable of?
Yeah. And I'm sure you have this drive from several lifetimes of forgetting completely who you are and living a lifetime of doing exactly what you've been told you should do and not being in touch with your heart at all. So you're like, oh, that's not a good experience. I'm going to do something different now.
Yes, I need more signs, a kick in the rear, like when I get, I guess, blinded by comfort and easiness, because it seems like when I get into, look, there's a balance here that you have to have. Like I'm not saying go out there and push yourself to the max, because then, there are effects to that. And I'm not saying do absolutely nothing, because then if you do nothing for a very long period of time, it's hard to change. I think again, it's always come back for me. It's like the middle path of like balancing that. And there's a time when to act, there's a time to go down that path, and there's a time to step back and self-reflect and to really learn a different way of being. And that's why I love having conversations with you, because I feel like right now it's like taking a step back from the journey and like reflecting more just from perspective and what you've experienced, and like taking parts of that into myself and receiving little upgrades that I can take along my path. You know what I mean? Like this is what I would consider like a breakaway from it, or a break, or it's almost like, and I read this metaphor in a book that was really beautiful. It's like the wave, is an an example of individuality breaking upon the shore, pausing for a moment, and then going back into the
Mm-hmm.
unity of the ocean. But when it goes back into the unity of the ocean, it takes with it gifts,
Mm-hmm.
seashells, like life, things from the shore, the bank, and it's making the ocean more. So like when I have conversations with you, like when I take a pause and I'm having a conversation with you, like I'm bringing back within me an upgrade of something, like gifts, small gifts. And then it's my responsibility to integrate that, and then to take that out into my reality, and just kind of shine that light onto others so that they have, a little bit of a glimpse or an effect, whether their consciousness or tangible like realization or felt presence of like change, almost to where they become more curious about who they are, if that makes sense.
It does. And that's beautiful. And also, you're doing amazing. You're doing amazing things.
Ah, there she is. That's my
Part
girl
of
now.
it is part of it. This is one of your core wounds around worthiness, and it's actually I see it as like a signature of the masculine wound of I always have to be doing in order to be enough. And this is just, a reflection to you of
It
you.
is 100% because like I can remember exactly like being a child and being of that blue collar type of like you working hard equals love,
Working hard
doing
equals love,
equals
and working hard equals getting just enough money to get by. Like this
100%.
mentality of like you have to like kill yourself to like working to just get by. And again,
100%.
if you think about that program, it serves a lot of the greater powers that be, and it's no longer serving us. So shifting out of it. But there is I feel that energy around what you were just saying of like, I need to constantly be doing, I need to constantly be proving, and taking a step back, like you do a lot. You're very worthy of love, Trey, exactly as you are.
But there's almost a balking sensation to that when I say, all right, I just need to just take a step back and just kind of get back into connection with who I am. I need to like really, I guess, balance out my energy to where I allow the universe to bring in things into my reality to where I don't need to stress or you know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of effort on my part to get into to states, which I imagine a lot of people experience that because of the programming.
Mm-hmm.
When does that stop?
Again, it for me, it's still there. I'm just much more at peace, and I see the need of what you're talking about. It's like a cycle of like this is my time to push, and this is my time to pull back and kind of see the broader picture, and really allowing yourself to embody that cycle and be okay with every single phase. Um, like I know so many people that are just so driven to consume all of this content on like spirituality and what's going on. And that's beautiful. And I'm here to support you on that. And also, if you don't integrate it, you're not going to get anywhere. So you kind of have to take these periods where you sit back and integrate and sit back and really check in with who you are now and what you believe now that you've had all these different perspectives come into your awareness. Like what fits with you? What is your truth? And being okay with those times where you're being called to sit back. Because again, if you just constantly push and push forward, you can't really see the bigger picture because you're so focused on that one path that
Mm,
you're pushing towards. So, especially when you're building something, building a business, like building a podcast, you want to balance this, like pushing the momentum forward and then stepping back and seeing, like, is this where I actually want to go? Is this what's serving me? Is this fulfilling me? Is this aligned with my dreams? And if you don't take that step back and see that bigger picture, you could just be like forging a path further and further down that's not actually aligned with what you want.
yeah, it's like an ebb and flow. It's almost going back to the ocean where you have the current that comes out of the onto the shore, but then you also have that pull back to the ocean. It's like,
And
there's a
the laws of the universe, you have to work with them because this is the universe that we're embodied in. But contraction and expansion, like we always contract and then we expand. And anytime you're working towards expansion, I work with a lot of clients that like reach out to me very worried because it's that contraction time. They're like, I've been working so hard. What's going on? I'm like, well, you're in a contraction and you're about to expand. Everything's okay.
sure.
Trust.
It's like the 4 seasons. Like they always come around and it's
Mhm.
like, there's a winter, spring, summer, fall, there's time for harvest, there's time for planting, and there's time for death. And it's like
Yeah. And I
just
also think,
recognizing that.
because one of the core virtues of the masculine is his desire to overcome. And I think being aware of that and allowing that to be part of your experience, like you have this strong drive to overcome challenges, to overcome limiting beliefs. It's okay that that's there. It's beautiful that that's there. And you can direct it when you're in touch with it and not just have this like constant, like a lot of men have this desire to overcome and they don't allow themselves to climb the mountain. So they end up digging themselves a hole to then climb out of. Like once you're aware of this drive in you, use your discernment to direct it. And that's really how you can get in touch with this gift of yours.
I love that. Yeah, it's not hard enough for climbing a mountain. It's that we're gonna dig a hole, put ourselves in that hole, and
Yeah,
then climb out
you
of
don't
that
let
too.
yourself go for the mountain, but that drive's never going to turn off.
Absolutely, 100%. Melissa, I cannot wait to have an in-person conversation with you at Tribe and really connect in person and hopefully get some upgrades, some
Oh,
physical
yeah.
upgrades from the frequencies that you put out into the world. How can people connect with you? How can they find out more about your services?
Yeah, so my website is melissalegette.com. I can send that to you so you can link it. And then I'm also doing, so we have our in person event September 21st, and then I'm hosting my first women's retreat in February in Sedona, Arizona, which I'm very, very excited about. Like I said, I'm deeply called to building community and doing in person work. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to liveluminousco.com.
I love it. And don't forget to go to trybaltimore.com, get those tickets for September 21st. $30, which is I think is reasonable for community members, and then non-community members I think is 35. But anyway, if you want to come hang out with me and Melissa and talk a little bit about your unconscious biases, feel free
Yeah,
to hit us up, come see us, check us out, and
come see
say
us and
hi.
bring your questions.
Melissa, this is always fascinating, and I always feel like we can always dive down a deeper rabbit hole. So thank you.
Thank you.